Many people do balance exercises on unstable surfaces such as balance pads, Bosu balls, or even slack lines. What do they hope to achieve from this? Improving their balance for sport, reducing the risk of injury, and enhancing their performance. In this video, you will learn why none of this can be achieved on unstable surfaces. The most important question we have to ask ourselves is, how high is the transfer of these exercises? With transfer, I mean, does it have an effect on other exercises or movements if you improve your balance on an unstable surface? This question was answered by Kramer and Guibois in their paper in 2019. They conducted a study with 3 groups. Group 1 trained on a tilting board, Group 2 trained on a wobble board, and Group 3 received no training at all. Theoretically, people training on the tilting board should also improve on the wobble board if there were a transfer, right? Let's take a look at what actually happened. In the graphic you can see green and blue bars. The green bars show the balance skills before they started working on their balance. The blue bars show the results after they completed the training program. To measure the effectiveness of the training, they had the participants perform 2 tasks. Balancing on the tilting board, which is the abbreviation TML, and balancing on the wobble board, which would be PML. The vertical axis shows how long they were able to hold their balance. The group that trained on the tilting board only became significantly better on the tilting board. Same goes for the group with the wobble board. They only got better on the wobble board. When you compare the green and the blue bars, you can tell that all groups got better in every task, even the control group, which received no training at all. That's because just by performing the test, you get better at performing the test. So please be careful when therapists want to show you how great they are, but they just had you perform the same test twice. Alright, let's get back to balance training. Why is it that you only get better at the task you are performing and that we see little to no transfer to other exercises or movements? Well, there are 2 perspectives you need to know. Perspective 1 is that balance is a higher order ability, which means that training 1 or more balance tasks leads to improved overall balance. This would then positively increase your performance in general. That's the perspective many people have, and I had for a very long time. Perspective 2 is that balance is a collection of individual skills that need to be learned and trained separately. This means that you only get better at the specific balance exercise or movement that you train, and that there is no transfer to other exercises. This perspective reflects the current state of the evidence. Okay, maybe we just need to be a little bit more versatile when performing exercises on an unstable surface? I mean, this way you would learn more balance skills and have a higher transfer, right? This idea is generally correct. This approach is called learning to learn. It's about recognizing commonalities in different tasks. This effect has been demonstrated in various studies in other contexts, but does it apply to balance training? The research on this is still quite thin, but Guibois and Kramer conducted a study on this and they were unable to find this effect in balance exercises. This chart from the study shows the learning curves of people receiving specific balance exercises, that's the blue line, and people without specific balance exercises, aka the control group in green. As you can probably tell, the graphs are really close to each other, which means there was no difference between the groups. And no difference between the groups means that the learning to learn approach does not seem to apply to balance training. And then there's also the study by Kümmel et al. In 2016, which comes to the same conclusion. They attempted to keep the body position of their participants very similar while only changing the surface. For example, performing a lunge on a stable ground compared to unstable ground. And they found that there's virtually no transfer of balance from unstable ground to balance on another surface. They also tried to choose a similar surface and slightly modify the exercise, but again, there was no transfer. From this we can conclude that you only get better in the specific exercise on the specific surface that you train on. That's also the reason why it's completely pointless to perform a single leg stance or similar tests to determine how good your balance is, for example in football, tennis, jogging, or anything else. Nowadays I actually get a bit emotional when I see people performing exercises on unstable surfaces, and I don't mean that in a good way. Let me be very clear here. If you do unstable surface training, thinking that those exercises are quote unquote functional, then you're actually completely wasting your time. Time that you could use for much better exercises. There's a very nice study by Hubbard in 2010 which brings this point home. He concludes that training on unstable surfaces is less functional than on stable surfaces. Why? Because the muscle activation is quite different from the movements that you actually want to get better at. Also, since unstable surfaces are so unstable, you can always just use a fraction of the weight that you could normally use. The result? Less strength gains, less stability gains, less muscle gains. I want to give you the whole picture here though, because there are some studies which actually show greater core muscle activity when performing exercises on an unstable surface. Well, if you take a closer look, then you notice that the weights they use in those studies are ridiculously low. For example, in the paper by Norwood et al. In 2007, they had the participants perform the bench press with 9 kilograms. What's actually funny is that if you just perform the basic exercises like deadlifts or squats on stable surfaces, you achieve much greater core muscle activity than when performing specific core exercises on unstable surfaces. This is shown, for example, in the paper by Nuzzo et al. In 2008. Please don't get me wrong here though. If you enjoy performing exercises on unstable surfaces and performance improvement or injury reduction are not your main goal, then please go ahead and keep doing them. They definitely have their place. Of course, there are many more myths out there. You can learn about the 9 most common pain myths in this video, and you can download my free pain guide over here. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.